What is up, everybody? I'm live from here in Austin, Texas, the Mecca, the Bitcoin Mecca, I guess, right? I mean,
Bitcoin
I'm
Mecca.
here in PlebLab, and I'm going to do this series for the entire week where I'm going to be covering everything that's going on. That's right, and uh, yeah, Sats by and South by Southwest kind of stuff, I guess, here or there. But just cover what everybody's doing here in Austin. A lot of builders going on, a lot of companies, a lot of great stuff. So first, we got Topher. What's up, man? How are you?
What's going on, Brandon? How's it going?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. So,
Welcome to PlebLab.
yeah, man, thanks for having me. Just put the mic a little bit closer.
I'm about to commit a cardinal sin here for the audio engineers out there.
Oh yeah. Let's pop open a little. Oh, I got a little foam. I'm sorry about that, but cheers, buddy.
I know you're happy to see me.
Yeah.
Control yourself. Cheers.
Of course. So, Topher, I found you originally in the builder's room we got back here in PlebLab. We're not going to put the live camera back there, so you'll have to come to PlebLab to check it out. But why don't you describe a little bit? First, let's get into you, and we'll get into the builder's room first or after that. But tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing in Bitcoin.
So I'm a builder. I like to build. I've been programming on and off for a few years now, but seriously for the past 2.5 years. And I've committed my life to Bitcoin. So I'm going to make this happen, Brandon.
There we go.
One way or the other.
One pleb at a time. Right? Yeah, there we go. Rocket ship taking off. All right. So, yeah. So tell us about the building that's going on in this this unique room that I like. That I'll have to say, I don't think I've seen anything really like it, where you kind of have a dedicated room, not to just like coding or anything like that, but actually kind of getting your hands in circuit boards, all that kind of stuff, like electrical.
Dirty.
Yeah, exactly. So you got a couple cool things that you showed me. So why don't we get into a little, I guess it was like kind of like a game board kind of thing that you got going on?
Yeah. So Toshimoto.
Shout out Toshimoto.
Yeah, you might be talking to him later.
Yeah, he might come in.
He ordered a arcade machine, which actually comes packaged inside this this console that has some joysticks on it, and then the computer's inside. And it also came with the Bitcoin Switch. So shout out to Ben Ark.
Oh, awesome stuff.
Who made the Bitcoin Switch. And so we're going to rig it up so that you pay sats to play.
Yeah, and it's great stuff too, because you obviously it's like a big old arcade game kind of thing. You pay some sats, you get to play, you plug it in, and get it on the big screen and everything like that. But it's more like an old fashioned video game. I feel like, instead of quarters or dollars or something like that, you could actually have it fill out the lightning invoice. That's right.
It's like magic internet.
The magic internet money, right? And then, all right, let's go into the other thing, because I think this one's a little bit more complicated, at least on the back end or your end, right? But you have like a little, what is this? Like this little slot machine, right? And I did see the
slot machine.
I did see a basket of quarters, and I don't think I've seen that much like actual physical money in one place in a while, because everybody's just got the digital, whatever, credit card, whatever it is.
Yeah, coins. Yeah. What are those?
I don't know. People actually still use those, or what?
Yeah, they're not real. They're like these specially minted coins, I think, just for testing the slot machine.
Oh, I didn't even know that. You could have fooled me, man.
Yeah, and you might even be able to fool a vending machine. I haven't tried it yet, but yeah. So that is a little more ambitious project. We were trying to rig it up so that you could pay sats into the machine as credits, and then when you win, you get paid sats out.
Oh, that's awesome stuff. Yeah. So, but it's going to be like, just like kind of the goal is to have it as just a normal like little slot machine, right? So if you get the bells or whatever, it's a big jackpot, or is it going to be kind of like the similar payouts sort of stuff?
Yeah, well, things are a little different because it's with the lightning invoice. But the idea is we're going to use LNURL withdraw or Bolt 12, maybe. I don't know when that becomes a thing. But yeah, because like most machines where you kind of rig it up to take coins, or in this day and age, take sats, it's like you're putting money into the machine, then you're getting something physical out. Slot machine's a bit different because it's actually paying you money back out. So it's a bit more of a challenge to get that working. But yeah, we got some fun stuff cooking in the workshop back there.
Yeah. So how would that even work? Would you have it as, I guess, almost like printing out a, what is it, like a QR code or something like that, where you can scan that and that's how you would get paid? Or would you have to connect your wallet to it? Or are you guys still workshopping that?
We're still workshopping that because I don't like having those screens where it shows you a QR code. I just love the feel of a static QR code.
Yeah.
So static QR code for paying into the machine is very simple. LNURL covers that, and so does Bolt 12. Getting the money out, though, that's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
So we're kind of workshopping some ideas on like what's the best flow for that, where for the end user it actually feels nice and comfortable, as close to their fiat comfort zone as we can get.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the biggest challenge that we have in Bitcoin as the space is not necessarily convincing everybody that Bitcoin's the right use. So, you know, having Bitcoin as, you know, the end dollar. I think it's just the UI UX with a lot of these things. So, I mean, you could feel free to push back on me on that, but I think the best case scenario would be kind of like the current system that we have now, where, you know, you go swipe your credit card or whatever it is. The average person has no idea what's going on in the background, right? They don't understand that Visa or MasterCard's like kind of covering that.
You're not going to type in your public key or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So if we could have a scenario where maybe it's, I don't know, like a Lightning wallet or something where it's even like you could hook it up to Apple Pay and you could almost like tap to pay kind of thing. I think more people would utilize that than, you know, obviously Bitcoiners are a different breed though, right? You know, that they want their privacy and everything else like that. But I think, you know,
no half measures.
Yeah, exactly. The average Joe Schmo probably doesn't really even, I mean, they're giving away their privacy.
We're going to build our citadels and raise our farms.
Exactly, dude. Exactly. So, but let's get into a little bit about what you're doing, right? You got the hat on, you got Bit Escrow.
Yeah.
So, rocking it there. So, one are these hats for sale here at PlebLab this week, or is this one of a kind?
Oh no, this is just for employees only.
Employees only. There we go.
We might get a merch store.
Yeah, maybe that's something that we can workshop in afterwards. But what is Bit Escrow, one, and what's your involvement in it?
So I'm the CTO of Bit Escrow and chief architect. So what Bit Escrow is going to be, what we're building it out to be, is the first true non-custodial escrow platform on Bitcoin that can still interact with the real world, but can provide people with escrow services with the trust that the Bitcoin blockchain is going to custody the funds and settle the contract, not us necessarily. So we don't have to touch the funds. We can help mediate disputes and we can help settle a contract in one direction or the other between two parties or multiple parties. But you can cryptographically prove just by looking it up on the blockchain that the funds don't go to us. It doesn't touch us. We can't mismanage your funds. We can't rehypothecate your funds. We can't do all these funny little accounting tricks with your funds. We literally can't touch the funds. So that's going to be our bread and butter.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like awesome stuff. So let's back it up first. What is escrow? And, let's, for the average person who maybe doesn't know anything like that. So what's a scenario that you would use escrow or something along those lines?
Well, I mean, anytime you swipe your credit card, you're using escrow. A lot of people don't understand that. So my background is I used to work in security and surveillance, doing hardware integration, working in construction, low voltage construction. Shout out to my C7s out there.
Shout out.
So one of the reasons people would call us in to install a camera system is because they have to retain sometimes up to 90 days of information about a purchase, because that's how long they have to wait until a purchase really truly settles on their system. So credit card companies will float transactions and keep them open so they can do chargebacks and stuff like that. So people use escrow every day just for that. And then you have like your PayPals, your eBays, like any other system that it's custodial. So they have the power to reverse transactions. So really your money is just in an account that can be reversed in case like there's ever a disagreement or something goes wrong. And 99% of the time that it works out well. That's what people want. People want that kind of protection. So
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you say that. It's like in almost every single transaction, and like we were talking, I forgot who I was talking to a little bit earlier, but it's like essentially the average person has no idea that that's kind of going on in the background. That those settlements are being transacted and kind of finalized after the fact. Whereas obviously the power of Bitcoin is those can be settled almost instantaneously. With the use of the Lightning Network and other things like that. So with escrow and kind of how you guys are building this out, I guess how can the user ensure that? Are you guys going to do some sort of multi-sig or something like that? Like how is that, the ins and outs? You don't have to give us maybe the full secret sauce, but,
well, it's going to be open source. So
okay.
it's going to, yeah, the sauce will not be secret on this one. So in order to establish escrow on Bitcoin, which has been like a holy grail for a while, you can do escrow on Bitcoin between Bitcoiners, no problem, because we're already settling on the Bitcoin blockchain. It's when you try to interact with the real world that it becomes a challenge. So DLCs try and solve this, but then DLCs still have this thing called the Oracle problem, where somebody you trust has to sign and vouch for a contract going one way or the other. At some point, you have to involve some trust. So how do you minimize that trust as much as possible? You can go the typical custodial exchange route where you just completely trust the exchange to manage your money. But that hasn't worked out very well recently.
You think?
Yeah, that seems to be the news. Like, what bank is exploding today?
I mean, okay, so yeah, I mean, it's not only like the funny thing is I think the Bitcoin and the lesser extent the crypto world has been getting a lot of bad publicity lately. And you just opened the floodgates about talking about this bank run thing that's going on like right now. But I mean, we obviously
It's a topical show.
Yeah, I know. We had what Celsius, we had BlockFi, we had all these other ones that are kind of FTX. Yeah, I can't believe I missed that one. But maybe even Binance here in the future, a little foreshadowing for everybody there. So I mean, if you don't have your Bitcoin off an exchange right now, what are you doing? But long story short, I feel like the average financial person would point to that and be like, hey, you need to regulate this. This is a reason why Bitcoin, crypto, all that shit is bad. There's no regulation behind it. It's kind of just the open market. Well, look what happened like with this bank run, right? I mean, we're having what was it, like Silicon Valley Bank was like the biggest name, but I
was really surprised by it. Who saw that one coming?
I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I've seen a few theories kind of tossed around where they think that the current administration wants to have 4 really big banks. And so what happens in these cases is like, they're kind of trying to end regional banks. Silicon Valley Bank is just one of them. And, essentially this bank is going to become like almost insolvent. So big brother, big sister, whatever you want to say, one of the big 4 is going to have to come in and just like bail these guys out. Because it's either them or the taxpayers. And then there's going to be more regulation, and it's just kind of a convenient excuse, I think, is like all this
kicking the can down the road.
Exactly.
Yet again.
Exactly. And that's what all this, the fiat stuff that is going on, that Bitcoiners just kind of point out of normie land. It's just consistently kicking the can down the road. And we're getting to the point now where the average person is waking up. I mean, at least I think, it's tough to avoid where your grocery bill was like $100 a week or a month. And now it's like 200. And
I saw a video of somebody doing some grocery shopping in Russia. And I don't know how true this is, but things look way cheaper over there. And Putin's been doing a lot of things recently, but one of the things he's been doing is hoarding gold. So like whatever they're doing with their currency, like they got kicked off of the SWIFT system and all this other stuff. Like the central banks tried to sanction them and kick them out of the platform. But I don't know. It just seems like inflation's hitting us a lot harder than it's hitting them. And then there's some other parts of the world, like in Africa, where things are just going completely off the rails. It's really scary, and it's sad because, like we're feeling it bad here, I believe, but there's other parts of the world where it's like dog eat dog.
Oh,
And
well, I mean, it's like super interesting that you say that about Russia because it's not only Russia that's been doing that, and it's also China too. And
yeah,
out of all the fiat currencies, the dollar has been very strong, except when it comes to like the ruble, I think it is, or whatever the Russian currency is. Like, I don't know, slipping my mind.
it
Maybe
is the ruble, I
okay,
believe.
yeah. I was like, about to say maybe this is Bud Light. That's making my brain a little fuzzy. But the ruble's been doing well. The Chinese yuan, it's kind of here or there. Obviously, they're rolling out their own central bank digital currency and stuff like that. But if you kind of look back, the Chinese and the Russians have been buying gold for a little bit of time. It hasn't just kind of started up. They've been doing it. I think for the past decade or so, kind of almost seeming like they're preparing for something that's happening right
Yeah.
now. I mean, it's almost like tinfoil hat shit. But I mean, the way that Putin kind of navigates the geopolitical waters, it seems like he's playing chess and we're playing checkers, and that the Russian and Chinese are kind of getting ahead one step at a time. And
Have
kind
you
of
seen the video where they compare the commercials for military service between their country and our country?
no, that'd
Oh
be
my
interesting to
God.
see. I mean,
It's
we're
it's a
kind of
shocking difference.
anything that comes out when it comes to the military, dude. I'm just like, what is going on? Like, we're caring about people saying yes sir, no sir, that kind of stuff because
Zer.
yeah, it's
You
it
have to
puts
get it right
it
these
assumes
days.
gender or something like that, where Russia and all that is like just yeah, obviously going to war and everything like that. Obviously, Ukraine, we don't want to see any war, any kind of thing possible, but it seems like this has been kind of in the plans for Russia for quite some time. And you know, chess not checkers. Like I said, it seems like Russia's always one step ahead of us, and I don't know. It's a sad state of affairs here
It
over
is.
in America, it seems, but we do have positives, right? I mean, we got places like PlebLab, we got other places building up a lot of great stuff.
We're building a sanctuary on top of a sanctuary.
Yeah, man. And every time, like I was telling Carr when I first walked in here, as last time I was here was late August, I want to say, like whenever BitBlock Boom was.
Yeah,
And
around that
that
time.
was when you guys just moved in here. It was all bare bones. Now coming in, I'm like, damn, this is like it's only been what, like 5-6 months or
Yeah.
whatever it is, and it's already looking like a completely new space. And it seems like you guys are building towards something new every single day. So, overall, just like outstanding stuff going on in here. So, on that note, like as somebody who's in the weeds every single day here in PlebLab and in Austin and kind of, interacting with the Bitcoin community here, what's, outside of what you're working on and all that stuff, what's the stuff that gets you most jacked up about, Bitcoin in 2023, even though we're in like a bear market and, everything else seems kind of doom and gloom and what kind of and whatnot. But what gets you jacked up about the Bitcoin space?
Inscriptions,
All right, elaborate.
not
What?
ordinals,
Why inscription?
inscriptions specifically. Because, well, I'll say this. So we have a couple really cool events here in Austin because we do try to be the Bitcoin capital. And one of them is BitDevs. Now there's BitDevs like all around the world. But we have some really cool in-house developers here for BitDevs. And it's not like a cheerleading party. We're not just like grabbing our pom-poms and going rah rah. Like we're actually talking about seriously, like what's wrong, what's broken, what's going to blow up, like 1, 2, 5, 10 years down the line. What do we need to work on? And so there's been this conversation in the background that we always talk about, and that is Bitcoin's quote unquote security budget. How is this thing going to pay for itself once the block subsidy runs out? So that's a good question. I mean, fees have to go up. Like that, there's no argument about that. Fees have to go up. So I think it's cool that now these things have dropped. Inscriptions, Madman Casey Rodamore, shout out to him. Like
Shout
he
out.
built this library to essentially just inscribe data on the blockchain. Some of the geniuses that created the Taproot upgrade for Bitcoin decided, hey, we fixed a lot of the problems that we had with the previous version when it came to script execution and a few other things. So let's just like take the bumpers off. Let's just say you can just dump as much data as you want in a transaction. You want to rip 4 MB in one go, you go right ahead. The relays will probably not relay it, but if you bribe a miner, they'll slip it in the blockchain for you. And so people have taken a liking to that. It's gotten pretty degenerate, I do have to say. But that's fine. I mean, I feel like where inscriptions are now is just kind of like a fad. People are very new to it. It's like a new thing on Bitcoin. So you just see all the monkey JPEGs and all this nonsense being posted. But I think it's actually a really cool technology to be able to use Bitcoin as this way of essentially like a time capsule. Like you can inscribe data on the blockchain that you do have to pay for, fair and square. I mean, you have to pay to play, and it's bumping up fees. And I feel like that's a good thing.
Yeah. I think, yeah. It's interesting because I hear like both sides of it, you know, just being like I guess a guy, a content guy, I guess I'll put that hat on. But the thing where I think it's going to be a real positive is like you said, in the fees and when it comes to mining, because what I think has been getting absolutely crushed lately is the miners, right? I mean, these public mining companies, we've been seeing a lot of them go bankrupt, a lot of them, you know,
it's tough out there.
Yeah, and it's a very tough business because it relies on electricity and, you know, energy costs. And one thing that miners can control is like, hey, you know, I can lock in this rate, X amount of cents per kilowatt hour for 1 year, 2 years, whatever. But then it's like, all right, the energy company, we've seen obviously oil and gas, we've seen a lot of other energy prices just skyrocket. So I imagine, you know, as these contracts come up, that's going to get more expensive. It's going to be more difficult for those companies that are just strictly Bitcoin miners. And so, you know, I've kind of always had this theory that Bitcoin mining is going to become something where it's going to be either like a company that's like a shell or something where they're using flare off gas, where it's like, hey, you know, we don't really need to do this. This isn't our main profit driver, but hey, if we can capture excess energy, why not do it? I mean, right? Or it's going to be something where it's like, I need to heat my home or I need to heat something. And instead of using you know, a space heater or something like that, like, why don't
You're
I
already
utilize that?
burning electricity into the
Yeah.
air.
Yeah, so it's always like a
money.
double-edged sword. So they don't really care about how much Bitcoin that they're getting. The fact that they're getting some is just like a icing on the cake sort of thing, you know? So that's where I think it's kind of going. But this, you know, or what, you know, this also helps Bitcoin miners right now that have been kind of hurting and going through these bear markets and maybe over leveraged or maybe made a couple mistakes along the way of the bull market. It kind of gives them maybe a little bit more breathing room if they get, you know, a little bit more reward as they're mining these blocks and, you know, kind of helping them get some breathing room. Because, you know, at the end of the day, as much as the average pleb loves the depreciated Bitcoin price, it does hurt those Bitcoin companies or the companies like kind of related to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
you can't build a business around volatility.
yeah, it is very tough. And, you know, especially in mining, dude, like I feel for those guys. I really do, because, you know, it's hard to be a Bitcoin bull and then operate a mining company because you want to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. And like for a publicly traded company or a big company, you know, I think you got to compare Bitcoin miners to like oil guys or like gold miners or whatever. And what
same kind of like psyche, I feel like miners that I've met, it's like it's that drive to, I guess, like go out on an expedition and find a place that you can like find some untapped resource.
Yeah. And but the biggest difference between those guys and Bitcoin miners is that those guys, like oil, you know, miners, they're not hoarding oil in barrels or anything like that. They're trying to distance themselves from the volatility of the asset that they're mining or accumulating. Whereas like Bitcoin miners, a lot of them, you know, whether it's for Twitter likes or if it's for popularity or whatever, or if it's for true belief in Bitcoin, they are trying to hold Bitcoin as much as possible. And like you said, volatility is just tough for business. And especially, you know, when it's volatility to the downward slope that we've had, you know, since the 69K top.
Well, you may just be in the Bitcoin mining capital as well.
Yeah.
We got a lot of miners out here.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Whole lot of
I thought that was
miners.
Houston, isn't it?
Oh, well, I mean, yeah,
I guess
maybe,
Texas in general. Texas
Texas
in
in
general.
general.
Yeah.
Do you know about the thing they're doing with ERCOT?
No,
The mining
let's hear
companies
about
out here.
that. Yeah, let's dive
Yeah,
into that.
so ERCOT is this board that helps manage the energy grid in Texas. And so recently, ERCOT has rolled out a program where I guess they got a bunch of regional power companies on board, and they got a bunch of Bitcoin mining facilities on board. And so what they're doing is they've kind of set up this system where they can broadcast the price of energy. Well, I guess it depends on the region, but they can broadcast the price of energy in real time. And so what they're doing is they're pumping this feed into the mining facilities. And the mining facilities are using it to kind of understand how to spin up and spin down. Like they want to spin up machines, spin down machines, depending on whatever the price is of energy at the time that they're getting it for. So one cool thing about this is that it makes it easy for miners to essentially just on demand spin up their machines whenever the price of energy is low. So there's excess in the grid. It's not really being used, like it's late at night or whatever. The weather's good. Then they get all this cheap energy and they can just mine away. But what's really cool is, and I think the real reason they're testing this out is that they've shown, if you go on the ERCOT website, they've shown this, that ERCOT can essentially spike the price of energy, and these mining facilities will react almost immediately because their machines are essentially glued into this price feed. So recently we had a cold snap where essentially everything froze over, and it also happened a year prior and then a couple of years prior. And when that happened, when it first happened in my recent memory, essentially one of the things that went down was the power grid. It also went down like during this recent thing, but that was like a more local thing. And so there was like all this issues surrounding the spike in demand on the grid. Everybody's trying to turn on their heaters, and it just everything blew up, and it became a huge problem. So now what's been going on is whenever we have one of these issues, like if there's a cold snap, everybody turns on their heater, or if there's a heat wave, we also had a heat wave in the summer and everybody turned on their AC. ERCOT can just spike the price of Bitcoin or price of energy, and then the miners will do their calculations and pretty much just shut down the machines, and it frees up capacity to the grid. So it's like this cool relationship that ERCOT has built with mining facilities where they kind of help stabilize the energy grid in a time of crisis. And it's really cool to see. It's been enacted like 3 times now, I think, in like the past year and a half. And so far it seems to be successful. And I just think it's really cool.
No, I mean, I agree 100%, but I'm going to play devil's advocate with you. So isn't that almost a negative where because of, the hash rate or whatever that, essentially if there's, I don't know, some big winter storm in the States or in North America or where a lot of these mining facilities are located, we're having kind of extended periods where certain miners are, big percentage of the hash rate is, kind of flipped on and off, and it's not really consistent throughout. Do you think that there's a potential negative because of that? Or do you think, it could be something where down the line, mining is almost kind of seasonal, and because you can kind of, it's decentralized, Bitcoin mining can be decentralized and whatnot, it's better to kind of have, I guess, more facilities spread out, so you're, I guess, limiting to that potential like weather risk and something like you're describing where we have it not only just in Texas but kind of globally, whereas like energy, it had just essentially help stabilize grid all over the globe.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point that if there's extreme weather events and you're using a mining facility to help stabilize the grid, and they're essentially like in the same path of the disaster that you're trying to avoid. And I think there was some mining facilities that did lose power, and so that did kind of fluctuate the hash rate a little bit, although I don't know how noticeable it really was in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, that could be a concern. Ideally, you would want to, if you were going to do like roll this out on a national scale or global scale, like you would want your, it would actually be an interesting argument that you would want your hash power distributed. If you were going to say like, okay, this is a matter of like defense of our energy grid, maybe even like a national defense issue where it's like, you know, there's always these headlines that I see pop up from time to time, like, oh, our infrastructure is so vulnerable to computer hackers from like foreign countries and they can just come in and shut something down. So we should probably upgrade our energy grid. And what a better way to do it than to actually like use Bitcoin miners to incentivize the revitalization and rollout of all of our energy infrastructure. And yeah, and then you would want it to be decentralized everywhere, because you wouldn't want the same hurricane that is like knocking down power lines to also knock out your miners. But yeah, that would be, I mean, that's a dream come true to me. I would feel like we would have won at that point. If like it becomes a matter of national security that we have to have mining in the US.
Yeah. I mean, I think like as we're kind of getting down, you know, as Bitcoin's getting older and whatever, and like more politicians are kind of waking up to the fact that mining can help stabilize. Obviously, we've got Cynthia Lummis in Wyoming and like other states that are kind of embracing this mining to help stabilize grids and other things like that. I think.
And recapture green energy too, because there's a lot of green energy that doesn't make any financial sense. It just there isn't.
Preach it.
Yeah, and yeah, so like there's so many like great advantages that mining could have just in everyday life, like not even just like defending the Bitcoin blockchain, but like actually like help defend other things in our life, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I mean, I just think that the possibilities are endless, and we haven't even like scratched the surface, especially when it comes to mining. But I mean, yeah, that's just, yeah, it's exciting stuff that we got going on here. Because like you said, it's not only just, you know, I mean, when I think of Bitcoin and kind of, you know, I guess the Citadel is almost being built in the United States. Obviously, Austin's at the top of the list, but you think about a lot about devs here, right?
Yeah.
So you think about a lot of that behind the scenes stuff. When you hear, or when I think of mining, I think of Houston, and that's just kind of, I mean, I grew up here in Austin, but that's also because, you know, oil and gas in Houston too. So it's always kind of been an energy spot. And then you think of like the media and kind of the coverage space being in Nashville. So, I mean, it is interesting though, that like here, you know, like you said, it's not just that. It is, you know, they do have a lot of mining facilities and everything like that. I mean, I know, you know, Riot and a lot of these big Bitcoin miners, they all
gotta check out the Riot facility.
Yeah. Maybe I could squeeze it in while I'm here. So yeah, I mean, it's overall just like exciting stuff. And yeah, man, I mean, there's just so much stuff going on here. It's awesome.
Yeah. I feel like if you can't be more bullish on Bitcoin than living in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Maybe El Salvador.
Yeah. Maybe El Salvador. But Topher, I don't want to take too much of your time because I know it's in the middle of the workday, and we'll kind of have some people rotate in and out here. But you know, for those listening or watching or whatnot, where can they find out more about Bit Escrow, or, you know, find you maybe on either Twitter or you know, shoot, our Nostr or something like that? I guess we can't post your Nostr public key or anything, but
no, but I am verified on Nostr, so I could just give people my domain, my NIP5 domain, which I don't even remember what it is. It's kind of, well, anyways,
yeah.
So you can find me as BTC Tech Support.
There we go.
On Twitter. What other handles? I don't really do social media. What are other my handles? BitEscrow.io. I think proof0.work is my Nostr handle.
Okay. And then, so for those, you know, obviously we went a little bit over what Bit Escrow is doing and what you guys are kind of, you know, working on, but where can they see updates? You know, are you guys going to be like releasing like updates periodically, or do I just have to have you on the podcast when you guys have something big released?
Yeah. All the above.
There we go.
So BitEscrow.io, we should have a mailing list on there.
Okay.
Sign up.
Yeah. So, yeah, for those
You
listening,
can learn how the sauce is made.
exactly. And yeah, like the great thing about Bitcoin too is like all these projects are open source and they're,
Yep.
full transparency. So it's, obviously don't trust, verify. And that's truly,
Absolutely.
shown in all the companies. So, Topher, man, thanks for coming in. And, I guess feel free to just bug somebody at the desk and
Oh,
tell
I'll
them that,
go wrangle someone else.
yeah, tell them to
Austin over there looks like
yeah.
he's a little bored.
Yeah,
I'll go
I
grab
know
him.
he liked the tweet of what's going on here. So why don't you shoot in Austin and we'll keep this thing rolling. I appreciate it, man. Hey, cheers, buddy.
Cheers, Brandon.
I'm
Let me
sure.
know if you need a refill.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have you kind of come back in throughout the week too.
Sure. It's
we
going to be a
could,
busy week too.
yeah,
Got a
we'll
lot
have
going
people
on.
popping in and out. So awesome stuff, dude.
All right.
All right.
See ya.
Let's
See ya,
squeeze into the
folks.
next one. Yeah. All right. So yeah, those listening, we'll have a little transition here. We're going to bring in the next guest. But I am Brandon at Green Candle. I will be here at PlebLab Bitcoin Commons throughout the week. I'm going to be just doing live streams and other things like that, kind of interacting with this space here at PlebLab and in Austin, and kind of covering South by Southwest and Sats by. There's going to be a hackathon, startup day, Friday. They got some other great stuff going on here in PlebLab. And now we got this next special guest walking in here. We got Austin. What's up, man? How are you?
What's going on? Doing good.
All right, man. So we'll start from the beginning. I met you today, but for those who don't know you, Austin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm just a developer here at PlebLab. I do kind of education for app developers and Bitcoin. I'm pretty new to that. I'm pretty new to the space in general, but I just showed up here in Austin about 8 months ago, showed up to literally everything, got super plugged in. And yeah, I'm just focused full time on this now.
All right. Well, tell us how you found Bitcoin then, because it sounds like, all right, you just got into it, and then you're like, all right, man, I'm uprooting, I'm coming to Austin, I'm diving full in head first. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, man, that's a big topic for sure. I gotta represent PlebLab here and say that, we're not all inscriptions shills, because I was listening there in the background. Super almost busted in here while Topher was talking about inscriptions.
Oh man! All right,
but either
we'll
way,
have to have Super come in next then if he's listening in. But
well, it's funny. We're all mixed. We all have mixed opinions here at the lab. That's one reason I like it, and we just like kind of make fun of each other. Like we've got some Noster Super Bowls, Noster early developers here. We also have Bears and everything in between. And Super and Topher, they're actually doing the inscriptions workshop here tonight. And Super is against inscriptions, but he's still doing the inscriptions workshop. But also in the workshop, he's going to show you how you can block inscriptions from your node. So this is
he made a point to tell me that when he was describing what's going on. He's like, yeah, you could definitely block this. So yeah, I mean, but I do appreciate that here, and it's kind of interesting because the average person, is not in PlebLab. The average pleb is not here. The average pleb is not in, some sort of place where you get to interact with Bitcoiners every single day and kind of hear that, which is obviously very unique to PlebLab and in Austin and what's kind of going on. Obviously, people maybe have their local meetups, but depending on where you're from, maybe those meetups are 5, 10 people, 20 people. And they kind of are just learning and other things like that. So as somebody who it sounds like you just recently got into the space, working on it and everything like that. So, how has that experience been kind of help, I guess, shape, your opinion on everything, where you have so many different, I guess, differing opinions when it comes to, something like inscriptions or, I don't know, something else that pops up in the Bitcoin space, because it seems like it's ever changing. Do you think that kind of helps you, I guess, like hear both sides of the argument and maybe just shape, what the things the new things that are kind of happening in the Bitcoin space?
God, yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of work to have a nuanced opinion about almost any of the topics that Bitcoin touches. It takes years to even learn about what is the basic Bitcoiner perspective, or what is like the hardcore Bitcoiner perspective, or what is, the bear perspective, the straw man, whatever, kind of building up all of these frames. And it's the same thing when you get into the technical space, right? There's there's so many nuances, and the average kind of Twitter pleb Bitcoiner, they might not know like the ferocity and the arguments that can go on just discussions of very small changes that happen on the protocol of the base chain. You know, a lot of people, they see Bitcoin as complete and as static, and like in a sense it is. Like we're running in prod, and we have been for 13 years, but you know, there's another perspective, there's another side of that as well, which a lot of the protocol developers have. But I guess either way, like it just takes time, and the more that you can kind of plug in, whether that's digitally, because that's all that a lot of people have, or actually going to a place like Austin, a place like Nashville, or wherever your local Bitcoin hub is. That's a way to kind of accelerate that knowledge. And I mean, you mentioned before that, like, yeah, the average person isn't plugged in to PlebLab, the average person that's into Bitcoin. And that was me for a very long time. Like I got into Bitcoin in 2017, and I didn't meet a Bitcoiner in person until I got here 8 months ago. So everything I knew, but I was consuming tons of content and knowledge and articles, and was learning a lot, and was running my own node and doing a lot of that stuff. But I really relate to those people, because that's most people's experience, is that they're kind of alone in just like interpreting all that's happening in Bitcoin. And so it's really hard. That's why we need to build more community, more grassroots community in every city, every town where there's Bitcoiners.
100%, man. I can't stress this enough. I tell people this all the time on my podcast and other things like that. But I think the value of having in-person meetups is really undermined. I mean, I know, you know, people shill their meetups and do all that kind of stuff, and like maybe you're like, all right, you know, you think you're too cool for going to that stuff. But I think like just the value, it's like networking, it's discussing, you know, ideas. It's, you know, maybe if it's somebody where you don't really, you're not in Bitcoin, right? You're not working in Bitcoin, but you don't think you have any sort of skill that can help. Well, hey, like go to these meetups. Maybe you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised as what you can do, what you can learn about, you know, something that's interests you. I mean, we were talking about this a little bit before the stream, is I think that the most valuable thing about Bitcoin in the community is just the passion behind it for the everyday pleb, and that they absolutely love Bitcoin, you know, they love all the things about it. So they have the drive to learn some sort of skill, which I think is very unique about you. We can kind of get into that because, you know, I don't know if you want to, I guess, fully docs like what all you do and everything like that. But yeah, it seems like from my perspective, just kind of meeting you today, that everything you learned is sort of, I guess, self-taught and just kind of, you know, figuring that out that way. Would you kind of say that's true? And, you know, I guess what brought you to getting to where you're at today?
Yeah, I would say it's not true. Definitely not. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I kind of wear the title of self-taught, but really it's like I stand on the shoulders of giants, right? I've hardly done a unique thing technically. I just had that passion, like you said. I didn't think about learning to program at all before I got into Bitcoin. I didn't think about anything academic or technical. I was a high school dropout. I played in bands, worked at fast food places. That's all I did. And it wasn't until I started going down the rabbit hole for a while that I really became inspired by like how Bitcoin works and the power of the software, the free open source software can have. And I kind of went down that route, and, you know, did some self-taught, got stuck, went to college, dropped out, went to boot camp, and then finally just kind of hobbled together like a basic skill set to where I was able to get, you know, like a basic fiat tech job. But I wasn't done. I was like, no, I did this to try and work in Bitcoin. So I tried even more and more, and the years passed by, and I was like, gosh, I suck. I can't get to the point where I can really build like Bitcoin or Lightning apps. And then just in the last probably year and a half, making some advancements on my own, and then coming here to Austin and getting to really talk to Bitcoin developers on the ground level, I realized we're early. We haven't defined the app developer space in Bitcoin. When people think of Bitcoin development, they don't think of the difference between the protocol building Bitcoin, and then apps building on Bitcoin. And apps are where Bitcoin will reach end users, applications. And that I realized, like, wow, yeah, this is a whole thing. This is like my kind of pleb skill set that I have, is building apps. How do people do it on Bitcoin? And I kind of have just been hobbling together all the easiest and great starter ways to get started building Bitcoin apps. And so we made a course here called the PlebDev course, and I've been doing workshops and streams, coding streams. I'm kind of building the second course now. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're interested in app development, definitely look into PlebDevs. But I didn't think I was the kind of person that could do it, and I'm not a natural by any means. But I've realized that, like, wow, yeah, really anyone can do this if they care about it, if they have the passion. And so, yeah, I guess that's kind of my thing. That's my shill. But either way, like, yeah, I'm just thinking about developers. I'm thinking about new developers. I'm trying to talk to the experienced Bitcoin developers and just absorb all of this information in this space, and just be as involved as I can.
Well, I mean, I think the interesting point there is, like, you're not just trying to, you're not shilling it because you're shilling it. You're shilling it because, hey, like, you were this person where, you didn't really have any knowledge when it came to development, and you're trying to, I guess, fill a hole, right? I mean, you're providing value for helping other plebs get onboarded, helping other plebs gain skills that are highly marketable. I mean, like, being a developer, are you kidding me? Like, all right, if say it doesn't work in Bitcoin, whatever, like, you could get a fiat mining job to be a developer like this right now. And
Yeah.
in a tough job market and other things like that, like, okay, maybe you don't get any Bitcoin experience initially, but then, hey, that's on your resume now. You can build some Bitcoin related projects on the side, which, it seems like a lot of Bitcoiners do, right? I mean, they kind of either moonlight, use some fiat job to kind of work on what they, want to do in Bitcoin space, or, whatever it is. And then eventually, some of those doors open up. The more you go, and like I said, do those in-person meetups. Maybe you come out to Austin, you shake somebody's hand that works at one of these great Bitcoin companies, and they're like, hey, now you have that personal relationship. And I think, like, the undermining of the personal relationship, something that I want to stress, like, that is so valuable, where you can just say, like, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm Brandon, I'm coming in here, I'm trying to learn. Or, we got Austin here. He's like, hey, I'm putting together this course to help people. And it's helped me learn, even better, because in order to understand how to develop and do all those things, to teach somebody to do that, you need to know it like 10 times better than just to do the subject, right? Because somebody's going to bring you all these different questions, other things like that, that maybe you wouldn't have thought of while you're kind of going through it. And like you said, man, it's just a passion behind it. It's, finding a space in Bitcoin that you can kind of help bring in. And yeah, man, it's awesome stuff. So on that, tell us, like, dive into the course. So how do people find the course? Do you have like an ETA of the second course, like when that'll kind of come out? And yeah, sorry to put you on the spot there. So if you don't have one, but it's not a huge deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go into it.
Yeah, I mean, for the second one, just as soon as possible. I'm just kind of grinding away. Like, there's no magic behind the scenes. It's just me standing in the same place every day on my laptop. But, just trying to make it as quality as possible. We'll be making the first course free when the second course comes out. The first course, you can just search PlebDevs or PlebDev on Udemy. That's the only thing you'll find. We're one of the 2 Bitcoin development courses on Udemy. It's absolutely insane. Like, you search Bitcoin development, Bitcoin engineering, all this stuff. Like, you literally get the most awful, like, screaming face, like JPEG, just trading courses. Basically, they're complete garbage. There's absolutely nothing on Udemy. So we wanted to break into that market. And of course, Base 58, another Bitcoin education company, is on there.
Yeah, shout out Base 58.
Yeah, Base 58 is amazing. I actually participated as a student, and it was really valuable.
And yeah, now look at you. Now you're building your own course. So I mean, there is, like, I know some there might be some resistance to the average person for some of these courses, right? You think like, all right, maybe there's not, but it obviously it provides value, right? I mean, there's something that you're doing there. You're working really hard, and you're, like you said, you're not really in it for all the money. You're going to make the first course free after the second course is available. So I mean, it's just obviously the building that's going on, and like just trying to help the average pleb out is something that you do not find in any other industry. That, like, not, it's not even close. Like, I mean, the amount of people that you find in the Bitcoin space that just try to elevate you, try to help you out, and do it just out of the kindness of their heart, and just kind of like, hey, I want a better world, like I'm gonna help try to build that. I'm like, I'm gonna eliminate the barrier to entry. It's just truly inspiring. So yeah, I mean, sorry to cut you off there, but keep on going, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that basically covers it. Like the first course, it's definitely catered towards those who are just starting to code, or maybe just on like a little bit of HTML, CSS, something like that. And so it's front end only. So we're only building UI. And so we had to think like, okay, how do we make it to where the students are meaningfully interacting with Lightning in some kind of way with just doing UI? And there's tools for that. We use LN-Bits, an awesome library that gives us like a simple way of just like, okay, we're just going to make API calls, but still with only basic front end JavaScript, we can build a Lightning wallet that you can put on your Pleb portfolio and you can show it off. So it's just these kinds of basic wins, because I mean, that's the path to learning anything. You need to get to those hilltops where you're getting positive feedback. You can't just like eat dirt forever. And so just trying to get those early wins and then building up and kind of exposing you to the full possibility of like a Lightning node. Like once you can talk to your Lightning node with a programming language in an app, what are all the things you can do with that? There's millions of ideas just waiting to be mined, but we don't have enough builders. And so that's kind of like my bullish future. There's just tens of millions of just pleb builders that all are familiar with Bitcoin and Lightning, and they're just like on standby. Maybe they're working their fiat jobs, maybe they're just writing tests at some big tech company, but nonetheless, they understand Bitcoin, they understand Lightning, and they can contribute in some way. And that's just kind of my mission, is like grow that space and like reach out to those people that I relate to, because I shouldn't have necessarily made it. Like I got lucky and blessed in a lot of ways, because a lot of other people are consistent, and they didn't get the same opportunities. But nonetheless, come to Austin and you will. Like if you come out, like anyone that comes up to me and they're like, hey, I'm a pleb dev, I'm like, I'm your best friend instantly. And I'm meeting them like all over now. I meet with people for free to give them just like coding help. It's just like, yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's not about the money. Like the money will come once you adopt that kind of final Bitcoiner mindset. It's just like, this is an inevitability. What matters is my time, right? My mission, my
100%.
family.
Yeah. 100%. So yeah, for those who maybe want to connect with you or do something like that, trying to figure out what you got going on, what you're building, what you're working on, what's the best way that they could find you and contact you? Like maybe they have some coding question or something like that.
Yeah, my personal is Bitcoin Pleb Dev on Twitter, Bitcoin Pleb Dev on Noster, bitcoinpleb.dev, and then search pleb devs. So
yeah. And then you said on Udemy you can search like a Bitcoin coding course, or how would you
yeah, we'll probably pop up on that search, but it's just pleb dev.
Okay, pleb dev. Okay.
Yeah.
Pleb dev on Udemy. Yeah. And all right, man. Yeah, give him a follow.
Yeah, dude.
Reach out to him. Come out to Austin this week. We got a lot of great stuff going on. If you can't come out this week, then come out some other time. You're always hanging out here in PlebLab. Is that right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, first time, if it's your first time, search for PlebLab on Google Maps, walk over here, knock on the door, tell me you're a Bitcoiner, we'll let you in for the day, hang out for free. Like we're just trying to get more minds, more traffic, more community here. So
100%.
definitely come through, and glad you came through this week.
Oh, thanks, man. I'm sure we'll have you pop in again like later this week as things kind of go on. I know we got the hackathon coming on. What is it? Is it Friday or Saturday? Saturday, yeah. So Friday's startup day, and then Saturday is the hackathon. So we got a lot of great stuff here at PlebLab. And Bitcoin Pleb Dev over here is going to be participating, and he's just out and about. So be sure to come in, pop in, say hi, and give him a follow, and check out all the stuff he's doing, man. Yeah, dude. Thanks for popping in and give me like 30 minutes of your time during this workday. And feel free to go bug somebody else and send them on the way here.
Yeah, I'll go see who else is here. But
all right, man.
Good hanging, man.
Appreciate it. All right, awesome stuff from Bitcoin Pleb Dev. So be sure to give him a follow and check out all the great stuff he's doing, working on. Obviously, outstanding guy. I mean, you just heard it here. He's just working on all this stuff to give out, people just free help. Just help plebs just really learn and the front back end of coding and all that kind of stuff, which is extremely valuable skill he's building. There's a lot of great builders here in Austin kind of working on all that. But we're going to do a quick transition here while we bring in the next guest. In the middle of this transition, what you guys can do to help me out and help kind of spread the word of all the other builders and all the stuff going on is, if you're listening on Twitter or if you're listening on YouTube, please like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, or retweet and like on Twitter. Like I said, my goal here this week is to really just elevate the stuff that is going on here in PlebLab, as there's, a lot of people just kind of out here just grinding, just providing value for people. So yeah, the least you can do, or the least I could do, is just try to use my platform to try to, elevate some of these great projects going on. So at the very least, if you guys could help with that, it'd be greatly appreciated. And come to PlebLab if you're here and in town. They're giving out these 6 shirts. Like, look at this thing I got on, huh? I mean, I don't know. Is there something on the back? I don't even know. I'm gonna turn around here. Oh, no, I think it's on the side. Is it? I don't know. This is great audio for those listening at home, but I think there's something maybe on the back, but I'm just sitting here in a chair, waiting here for the next guy to come in. But man, overall great stuff. Like I said, South by Southwest, obviously a great tech, music, art, film festival here in Austin, where my hometown is, but it doesn't really embrace the Bitcoin aspect. So what I want to do is kind of help these plebs out who are really out here working, grinding every single day, and elevate that, man. I mean, so that's the mission. Hopefully we have somebody else coming in here kind of soon. So I'm not sitting here talking to myself as much as I love to hear my own voice. But So my plans here for the next week or so are hang out in PlebLab, Bitcoin Commons. For those listening on Twitter or in YouTube, feel free to just show me great places that have popped up. I mean, I haven't lived in Austin here for full time for, I don't know, maybe like 10 years or so, 10 or 11 years. So I'm always kind of popping in here periodically for holidays and whatnot. So any place that I definitely need to try food wise, feel free to shill. Preferably places that I could pay in Bitcoin to. I'd love to use that. I am just I'm gonna be out and about doing some videos, hanging out, and just overall just interacting with plebs, man. So I know we've got Bitcoin Pleb Dev. Obviously, shout out to him to coming in. We had Topher come in earlier. So be sure to give those guys a follow. Check out what they got going on. Replay that at the beginning of this episode. And man, I do appreciate everybody tuning in and elevating this. We got somebody who's potentially coming at 4:30, so we got a space here. So if you're in PlebLab right now and you're listening, feel free to come back in, or I don't know. I mean, little maybe I'll seduce everybody with my voice here on this microphone. I do like kind of talking into a microphone where I normally I'm just talking into my laptop and interviewing guests over the airwaves. So yeah, plebs. Austin, Texas. Great. We got this sick artwork too behind me too. I didn't even really notice that until right now. So overall, great studio. Shout out to PlebLab. Shout out to the guys here. Shout out to Carr and everybody for hosting me this week here in this great space. A lot of great events. I know that they have an ordinals kind of workshop going on tonight, taught by Super Testnet. Maybe we could get him in here if he's listening. I know I see him kind of through the window here, just grinding away, head down. But yeah, if you're looking to learn about ordinals and learn how to make ordinals, other things like that, come on in. You could even learn how to block an ordinal if you don't like it, or inscriptions. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, well, I'm sitting here waiting, see if we could get the next person on in. And I might just leave the live stream going here for a second and just pop out, pop back in. Oh, we got somebody. Is there? I'm gonna pop right back in. So obviously this is gonna be some quality airwaves that you guys can listen in on. Where it's just gonna be dead air for like a couple minutes, but I'm gonna get somebody in real quick. So stay tuned. We'll do this. We'll just talk about what you do in the Bitcoin space, and I'm just kind of covering in. So
Yeah.
here we go. Here's your seat, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right. So I just walked in, and I got Ted here. So Ted, all right. I'm Brandon. So for you don't know me, but I'm covering what we're doing here in PlebLab this entire week. I'm here to cover SatsBuy, the hackathon, and yeah, the startup day on Friday. So Ted, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and yeah, what you do in the Bitcoin space?
Sure. Should I pull the mic up?
Yeah.
up
Feel
close?
free to make a little love to the mic or whatever.
All
man.
right.
Yeah.
How's this?
Yeah, that's good. You sound great. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm a new plebeian. I've been here for a few weeks.
Okay. Awesome stuff.
Yeah. I do market research. So I'm still mining fiat. I'm way deep in the canary mines.
Hey, me
All
too,
the-
man. Low
yeah.
key. So, yeah, I feel that. But all right. So then, what brought you to Austin? Do you have you been here for a while? Kind of what got you interested in Bitcoin? And yeah, we'll start there.
Well, I've been following Bitcoin for a long time.
Okay.
Not long enough, of course, as everyone says.
Yeah, everybody says that, right?
But yeah, I came to Austin really looking for the Bitcoin ecosystem. Where is it? Where is the highest density of people innovating on Bitcoin or on other companies associated with Bitcoin? And I left Boulder, Colorado. That's where I was for a long time. And I went to the West Coast, and I've been city hopping. So I went to San Francisco, went to Seattle, went to Vancouver, and the people in Vancouver said, "Hey, you got to go to Austin." So that's what ultimately brought me here.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you know shoot, what is his name? Fissler from Vancouver?
No,
He does
Leo. I knew Leo
no,
though.
okay.
He was running BitDevs up there.
Okay. Yeah. So I know that there's another, I guess, more just not bit devs, but just like a Bitcoin meetup that Fissler runs up there. So shout out to Fissler. I've had him on the pod. And then I believe, the name is escaping me, but there's another person, Alexandra. She helps run BitDevs, correct? Is that in
Okay.
Vancouver?
Yeah, I was only there for a couple of weeks. So
Okay.
I can't tell you.
Okay, so
everyone's
maybe you
name.
missed them. Yeah. But yeah. So then you've just been city hopping, and then
City hopping. Yep.
yeah. So then what's your end goal? How long are you here in Austin, and what do you want to get out of being here in this Bitcoin Citadel?
These are great questions.
Yeah.
You get looped into the most random things here, and that's really what I came here for, right? This is the place where you bump heads with people, you find out new things, you learn. Ultimately, I do want to do a company, a startup, and it may or may not involve Bitcoin. I'm still deciding that. I would love if it did. I want to contribute to the community, but I've done 2 startups before. I did one startup just out of college. That one totally failed.
All right, let's get into that though. All right,
Sure,
so all right, what was the startup, and I guess where do you think things went wrong, and if you were to go back and do it again, what would you change anything, or yeah, let's go there. I know I just asked you like questions that
Yeah,
you could probably go on for like 30 minutes, but go for it.
I'll try to give you the more abbreviated
Yeah.
answer to it, but I would say that when I first went into
What was the idea first?
well, the idea was I want to make a creative problem-solving solution for children.
Okay.
Children, are innately very creative. They're always building, constructing things. But, as you progress in age, you learn, hey, you got to follow the structures that the way things are. And so the idea was, well, can we foster creative problem solving with kids for a longer period of time? And particularly with girls, because, STEM and there's a lot of toys that are directed at boys, but not as many at girls, right? So that was the original idea, STEM for girls. And we did a children's book. Children's book was, honestly, we thought it would be the easiest business model we could do, but it turned out to be probably one of the harder businesses to start. So recruited my best friends on it. We grew the team to about 10 people at one point. We had a lot of revenue throughout the state of Colorado, but never quite got profit figured out. And so, profit's kind of the most important thing that you need to have when you're running a business. So I was burning all the savings I had, eventually made the call to cut all of my personal living expenses, sleeping in a car for about a year straight. And that was, tough period of my life, but it was really enjoyable. And I don't know if I would do it again, but I don't regret any of it because you learn so much. The number one thing I learned is you can't, and this is good for Bitcoin companies too, you can't be purely ideas first. I mean, you can, but the success rate of that is very low, right? It's good if you're a VC or an investor group and you can spread your bets across all of these different people that are experimenting. But if from a personal standpoint, we only have so much time on this planet, right? And failing fast is a tough way to do it. So I learned that lesson the hard way. And that's kind of what I've dedicated my career to since, is really diving into the product market fit and how do you figure out what it is that people actually want.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty interesting that you bring that up because, I think from this past a little bit, I guess, decade-ish, like 2010 to 2020-ish time, we had a lot of growth companies. So I don't know how much you know about me and kind of my platform, but what I do is I bring a lot of, traditional finance and Bitcoin. So I kind of have like both ends of the spectrum. I got two podcasts, Macro Insights and State of Bitcoin. Macro talks to all different kinds of people, just kind of, unrelated to Bitcoin. And then, obviously State of Bitcoin, just the Bitcoin space. And so I get a unique perspective from both sides. I get the traditional finance people, I get the Bitcoin people. And, the traditional finance recently has been just very profitable off of growth companies. And what a lot of those companies, didn't have to care about for a long time was making money. They just were able to get, hey, they have this crazy idea, whatever it is, and we're going to just pour a bunch of venture capital money into it, pour a bunch of money into marketing and other things like that. And then we're going to figure out how to make money and be profitable later, which is kind of like the Amazon model. But, there's really like only one Amazon, right? I mean, majority of the companies they don't show are the ones that fail. And, the one thing that I think is interesting about your story is that it seems like a lot of plebs are kind of in the same wavelength, where they'll go and like do what you did, like live out of a car, do something to just kind of help build on Bitcoin or build something related to that. So then what, I guess, kind of drew you to this Bitcoin space, and, why are you kind of trying to get involved in it now?
Yeah, these are all really good questions. And, I do think that I see this a lot in PlebLab, and that's something I've been trying to talk with people about as much as possible, share the experiences I've had. And, hopefully that helps. I think ultimately, people who are, Bitcoiners are ultimately driven. Obviously, number go up, technology, that's great. And, I think in addition to that, it's helping people, right? And in my mind, there's really a strong link between, a company being successful ultimately in the long term, maybe not in the short term if you have plenty of VC dollars, but in the long term, you have to help people, right? That is the end goal of any business. And, I see Bitcoiners as the ground zero of trying to do this in the financial space, implications with all sorts of different sectors. I do think it's sometimes overcomplicated in some settings. I do see some very technology first companies that are out and about, and the hope is that they can link their cool technology invention back to what someone's actually trying to do. From a very practical standpoint. But I've been amazed at some of the business models that I've seen that you really just you wouldn't be aware of unless you're here, kind of meeting people, bumping into them in the hallway. The water cooler talk here is pretty crazy to see.
Yeah, it is. It is insane. It's a unique place to say the very least. I mean, I get like words can't even really describe what's really going on here. You have to come here yourself, I think, to really visit it, because and that's what I'm kind of trying to do now this week, is kind of just elevate what all is going on and kind of show like, hey, what's going on here in PlebLab is really special. And the average person that's kind of in here, I wouldn't maybe call them average when it comes to like the average normie, right, or anything like that. But the average just pleb that is just hanging out in PlebLab and kind of building all this stuff. It's just it's inspiring, man. I mean, I don't even know how else to say it. It's like the Bitcoin space. It just has like you said, like all these people that are just kind of in here, just brilliant, and just really have gone down that rabbit hole. And I think it's the passion behind Bitcoin that is just very unique compared to other spaces. But let's get into your second startup.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's hear about that. So what was that all about? And let's go through the spiel.
You see, if I didn't learn the lesson the first time, I had to go and do it a second time. So the second startup was very, very different than the first. First was ideas first. It was all college students or recent graduates. So young group, we were knocking on doors, we were selling out, on the pavement at city markets, that sort of thing. And low tech, very low tech, right? Second startup, very high tech. This was an academic spinoff. It had a lot of research grant money, that sort of thing. I linked up with the founder. I was the first employee of this entity. And, the prototype was like a bunch of wires, and the pitch deck was all white slides with, metrics and crap that investors don't really want to see, right? They want to see the rigor, but they don't actually care about the intricacies of why the technology works the way it does. So as the first employee, I was really excited by this technology. It was a wearable device that you put behind your ear, and it could detect all the brain signals, the eye motions, and the facial muscles. So if you smiled or winced or whatever, it could see all of that in an EEG readout. So pretty cool tech. The question is what do you do with that? So what we did is we created a story. Really, that's how it started, was a story around improving people's sleep. Obviously, sleep is a major problem. If you have sleep apnea or insomnia, or there's plenty of issues. Obesity is certainly one. And we could create a device that could monitor your sleep patterns much better than any sort of wrist watch could ever do. So we took that out into the world, and we raised, I think it was 1.5 million seeds. So it was a decent chunk of change from investors.
Yeah, that's pretty tough, dude. So I mean, congratulations on that. Even that, I mean, that's in itself, that's pretty awesome, to say the least.
Yeah, no, that was great. I mean, I don't really take a whole lot of credit. All I did was say, hey, all this stuff needs to be cleaned up. You can't have wires everywhere. You need to put it into a nice case. Mm-hmm. Let's 3D print something. Let's make a slick demo. Let's make the slides look really nice. It's just the basics. Let's make the monetization path make sense. Just kind of startup 101 stuff to make it attractive to investors. Now, the flip side of this is we brought in investors that really believed in the initial market that we were serving. I went out and did over 100 ethnographic deep dive interviews, sitting down with customers, sitting down with different people, all different personas, shapes and sizes of people. And we found that, hey, maybe the sleep thing is not really the best market. Here's an alternative market. And the new market, which is going to sound very different, it was seizures. It was parents of children. Those children were recently diagnosed with seizures. And if you put yourself in that setting, a parent with a kid was just diagnosed, it may take 3 years before their seizures are accurately controlled. So it's like a terrifying experience. They can't hold down a normal job because they're constantly worrying about this. They can't sleep through the night because sleeping when you have a seizure is actually the most dangerous period of time. And so we identified this market and we're like, okay, the technology we have could totally hit this market. It was like a $300 million opportunity. So in my mind, it was like, okay, well, we have a pretty good shot at taking like a decent chunk of this $300 million market. We're going to help a lot of people who are really, really struggling. I mean, I sat down with these people. Like one of my interviews was 3 hours long. And, it's kind of heartbreaking to talk to these people who have this severe unmet problem. And, sleep, a lot of people have terrible problems with sleep. I struggle with sleep. It's a very common problem, but it's not quite as severe.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that was a $1 trillion market, and this was a $300 million market. So the investors were like, oh, no, you can't just switch over to a different market. You got to stick with this bigger vision. And that was ultimately why we didn't pivot. And unfortunately, I was not a founder. I was an employee at that company. And at some point I did make the decision to jump ship. And I said, if we're not listening to the customer, then, what are we doing? So since then, I've been doing a lot of consulting work, working with bigger companies. But ultimately, my goal is to start 3, and maybe 3 times is the lucky.
Yeah, third time's the charm, right?
The charm,
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. Because it kind of relates almost to like a little bit about my background. Like I have a background in like engineering, biomechanics, biomedical engineering, undergrad degree. So all that kind of like, it really resonates with me. And the thing that I was kind of thinking about was like, I utilize motion capture a lot. So, I mean, you think about the green screen kind of stuff, a bunch of cameras everywhere. Well, if you have a device that can like essentially track your motion on your face or anything like that, you can like essentially just plug and play in that with, something like Avatar or one of these movies where, they're using all this CGI. And instead of, how they do the CGI usually is just a shit ton of cameras where you can use a sensor to do that. Maybe it's be a little bit better and it's like a little bit cleaner for the actors or whatever. But I mean, there's like that is like, there's like endless possibilities for stuff like that too. But but I mean, I think the big takeaway for me with all that is that essentially venture capitalists were almost in a sense kind of controlling what the company is doing. And where I think like, I've talked to a few VCs in the Bitcoin space, and that's where they kind of, they help guide, they help make connections or whatever. But for the most part, they're helping Bitcoiners or plebs or whatever who really just have an idea and are really inspired by the overall Bitcoin space, but don't really have too much business sense, I guess. So no offense to any of those founders or anything like that. But I mean, I think, like you said, what's unique about you is that you have 2 startup, kind of experiences, where a lot of plebs that I see that are kind of developing or getting into the space, this is really their first go around. And what comes with that is, a lot of mistakes or potential bumps in the road. And when it comes with something like Bitcoin, where maybe it's volatile in price and that's what affects your overall business, it's a little bit harder to make some of those mistakes. So, with that, I guess, what was your, biggest takeaway from those 2 things that if you were to go in, startup 3 in Bitcoin, that you really take away and you're, this is something that you're going to kind of keep at top of mind at all times?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really breaks down to thinking about the customer from an Austrian praxeological point of view. And for people who haven't heard of, praxeology, it's very simple. It's just you treat people like they have goals. That's the whole premise. And it sounds like such a simple idea, but I think it's a big deal, because a lot of the ways that we do customer research is we almost treat people. This sounds terrible, but it's true. We treat people like they're animals or lab rats. We put them in a glass box and we say, oh, if I poke them with this red button or this blue button, which one do they click? I think that's the tendency. And that's really what's described by VCs as the best practice. But if you ask the customer or the person you're trying to help, what are you trying to achieve? And then you take what they're trying to achieve and you just reverse engineer it. You say, what is the first thing that you have to accomplish to get there? What is the second thing? What's the third thing? what are the roadblocks that you have along the way? And then you just reduce those roadblocks. So I like to use the phrase, perfection is achieved by removing or minimizing imperfection. And I think that's true from the customer experience.
I love that.
Just got to keep it simple. You know, what exactly are they trying to do? Just make sure you're helping them do that, and don't overcomplicate it. Like, a lot of people construct this imaginary future world where people will be acting in a certain way. And I think they lose touch of what exactly is the person trying to do. Are they trying to spin up a node? Are they trying to transact with another person? Are they trying to save for the future? And when they are trying to save for the future, what's the first thing they do? No, it's not go on to Kraken and buy Bitcoin and send it to cold storage. The first thing they do is evaluate. Well, first thing they do is, determine their savings goal. The second thing is they evaluate their savings options. And in that case, Bitcoin is competing against other savings options, et cetera. So just breaking it down, I think, is, really helpful way of thinking about how you get customers using the thing you're building.
No, I think that's awesome, right? And I mean, I think that the big portion of that is like putting the customer first, right? I mean, you mentioned it in your second startup, where it's really just always about the end goal of the customer, right? I mean, if you determine the market and you kind of like limit yourself or kind of focus on the bigger picture, and you don't really minimize it to what is the end goal of the customer, that's where, like, I think you see a lot of things kind of fail. Is like, hey, I see this billion-trillion-dollar market, whatever it is. I want to go capture a portion of that. Well, what problem are you solving for that customer? What are you trying to, help the consumer do, and like all those kind of things. And I think that the market will kind of, build up upon itself, right? I mean, like, if you look at like a lot of these industries, even outside of Bitcoin, right? Like an iPhone, for example, right? I mean, what was Steve Jobs was even doing, like, I mean, the problem with the original phone was just communication across whatever borders, cities, distances, even neighbors or whatever, instead of having to go and knock on their door. And now we have like a mini computer in our pocket at all times. So I mean, like, the evolution of a lot of these things, you can kind of create a market just based on whatever it is. So I think, I mean, putting the consumer first. And I think that's the biggest thing for me with a lot of these Bitcoin companies is, I think I mentioned it a little bit on the stream earlier today, but if you can have the end consumer, like, Bitcoiners are a different breed, right? I mean, like, they want their privacy. They don't really care if, it's going to help the circular economy. They don't really mind pulling out their phone, opening, maybe it's a Strike or, Moon Wallet or one of these things where you open it and scan a QR code and kind of effectively pay with Bitcoin that way. The end consumer is so used to just taking out their wallet, put in a card, tapping it, inserting the chip, or doing Apple Pay with their phone. Like, they don't even care about the background of any of these things. If the way I think Bitcoin and some of these Bitcoin companies can be successful is just essentially allowing users to use whatever service that they're developing and not even realize like kind of what's going on in the back end. And because like you said, I think if you really just boil it down to what is the end goal, like what problem are you trying to solve from a consumer, or what are they trying to get out of this user experience? If you just boil it down to simplicity, majority of the time they don't really care about what's going on kind of in the background and what is being developed, or if it's Lightning Network or on chain or whatever it is. They just want cheapest, fastest kind of route. So
customers want a lot, and in that example I think you brought up, it highlights one of the things that you see a lot, which is, can I make my customer do extra steps to get some benefit? And the way I would approach it is, okay, the customer wants to, let's say it's a transaction app, and they have a set of metrics that they use to judge whether or not they can successfully execute this transaction. And some of those metrics are time related. Like, I want this to be as easy to do as quick as possible, and minimize the time it takes to determine who you're going to send it to, or confirm that the transaction is en route, or confirm that the recipient has received the transaction. You want to minimize the time for each of those steps. There's another set of criteria, which is all around likelihood, minimizing the likelihood that something goes terribly wrong. And in that case, those metrics for Bitcoiners might be higher than for normies, right? A normie may want something that is, and I'm just guessing here, we don't know, we have to talk to them, but maybe the normie will say, hey, I want this super fast and easy to use, but the Bitcoiner might say, hey, I want to minimize the likelihood that any third party gains access to my data while I'm typing away on the phone. So the truth is, everyone has both metrics. It's just the priority of those metrics might be different. But
100%.
ultimately, a really good solution needs to solve
for all of them, which is the tough part, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're not going to satisfy everybody, but I mean, the way you can satisfy like most people, I think is probably the most, and also, doing it the right way, right? I mean, like you said, a lot of these companies, they look at the bigger picture, like what are the money grab. I think that the one thing that really inspires me about a lot of these Bitcoin companies is the focus on open sourceness and just kind of being open about what's going on behind the scenes. And I think that's going to be like, really valuable when it comes to like going forward, especially, when we've seen things like, recently, like the Twitter files and kind of like other things like that, where, I think that we're getting to a place where maybe normies are waking up a little bit and understanding, but I don't know. What do you think on that perspective? Do you think like the average person is realizing any of that, or do you think it's just maybe in our little I guess, what is it, Bitcoin kind of echo chamber?
Well, we're always in the echo chamber.
Exactly.
So, but I do, one of the things that I think I've realized over the past few weeks, just meeting lots of different people have come to Austin. We've got South by Southwest going on. I've got my collared shirt on, so you can tell I'm going to some government or some other, got my khaki pants on.
I know, so, we got businessman in here.
I think it's good. I think it's important to realize that there's many different people with many different backgrounds, opinions, needs, different priorities, and they all need to become Bitcoiners eventually, right? So the path for one person may be very different from the path of another. One person, let's say I talked to someone in Ghana recently.
Oh, wow.
And in Ghana, they have real transaction problems. Like their banks are subject to arbitrary theft, really is what it is. I mean, it's legalized theft at the government and at the corporation level. They also have real constraints as to what types of currency they can use to buy at the marketplaces that are local. So in that context, someone might find one set of needs interesting. And I'll just give a random example here, but in certain countries that are very developing, those people in those countries may have more of a need for lottery-like systems. And I think a lot of—
What do you mean lottery-like systems?
Well, I mean like, shit coins.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that is a good lottery. I'm saying the appeal of shit coinery is basically a lottery, right? And
1,000%.
There is a real need. If you have no path out of your economic niche, then some people may decide that, hey, look, I'm not getting out of this problem by saving. The only way I can get out of this problem is through gambling.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I could spend like an hour talking about this subject just alone, but I think, when it comes down to it, we've had a decade long plus of just zero to no interest rates. And when money is cheap, which is essentially like the basement of the fiat system, dumb ideas never die. And I think that's where I've kind of, found where, like I was describing before, all these growth companies, they didn't really have to make any money. They didn't really have to provide a good service. It was just something that like, hey, this is kind of a cool idea. Like, we're just going to keep throwing a shit ton of venture capital money towards this. And, eventually like we'll figure it out. We'll make some money. But in the end, like I said, some of these dumb ideas don't die. And so when you have companies like FTX, like Celsius, like some of these other shitcoin casinos where they're just like, hey, we're throwing all this money at this company to do all these marketing stuff. And it's like, hey, we have inflation running rampant and all these other factors. Hey, you just deposit whatever shitcoin here. We'll give you 15% or 20% yield on something that, it's like you point at the banks, which are obviously getting bank run right now, but you point at some of those guys and like, hey, they are only offering you 0.5% or 2% or whatever it is. they could be offering you 7%, but not really. Like the average person isn't looking for the explanation on how that bank is getting 2% or whatever it is. And they're believing this guy or gal or whoever the CEO media face is for XYZ company, XYZ shitcoin casino. And they're trying to find a way out. You know, I think it's a lesser extent in the United States compared to, you know, Ghana or some of these other unfortunate places, which, you know, have been in, you know, a tough spot to say the very least, right? Third world country, really don't need it. Like, you can't really mince the words around that stuff. And so they get lost in this trap. And then when those things collapse, they potentially lose their life savings, and then they're screwed even more. And it's just this never ending debt cycle. Right. I mean, in the United States alone, we have people who are go to college, go to grad school, go to all these things. Like, you need to be higher, more educated than years before. You need to, you know, be more in debt because you need to be more educated. And it's like this never ending cycle. And it's like, all right, well, how am I going to pay off $300,000 worth of student loan debt when I need to live in a city where, like Austin or like Tampa, where I'm currently at, or Nashville, or some of these other places where it's like rent has increased by 50% or rent's increased by $400 or $500 a month, and I need to live close to where my office is. I could, you know, or I could waste my time and live like an hour away and then have to battle traffic and do that commute and kind of hate my life, you know, all this time. So it's like, I don't know, all these various
New entrance.
Yeah, I guess we got somebody ringing the doorbell trying to come into PlebLab. But, you know, long story short, we have this kind of never-ending cycle of people who are essentially just trying to get out of it. And, you know, like you were saying, I think it's, you know, just kind of the FTX and kind of some of these other debacles are just a product of what has been going on, and it's extremely unfortunate. But I think, you know, Bitcoin is kind of where I think, if we didn't get enough people that were, I guess, you know, away from the shitcoin casino and all that kind of stuff, if we got enough people that are kind of, I guess, more open to Bitcoin, and hopefully didn't get burned too bad, that they can kind of find their way into it and maybe hopefully find a way out of this, you know, this fiat Ponzi that we're in right now.
Yeah, I do think there's a way out. You know, these people, I'm amazed. Like in my line of work, I do consulting with big Fortune 500 firms. And, you know, a lot of banks. I talk to a lot of senior people at big corporations. And I'm always amazed, like a lot of these guys and girls are very open-minded about Bitcoin if it's articulated in a certain way by certain people, right? So obviously Michael Saylor currently is, you know, he's the leader of the Cyber Hornets or whatever. But, you know, his kind of person, right? CEO of a big reputable firm, and really not a very exciting firm. It's almost gives him more reputation. That is a really good demonstrator, I think, for other business leaders. Likewise, let's say you're a director of accounting in a firm, right? You probably want to talk to other directors of accounting or people in similar firms, similar place, in which case maybe what you care about most is Bitcoin as a volatility hedge. Maybe that's not the best one, but you know, in today's day and age with Silicon Valley Bank and everything else blowing up, maybe it is a secure place. But you know, each person is going to take their own path. We went to one of the South by Southwest events on Friday, and a bunch of us plebs went down there, and we orange pilled 2 people.
Nice.
One guy, he was at Shell, and we just told him fracking, right?
Yeah. Well, hey, Shell is now sponsoring Bitcoin Miami. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, number one vendor.
Yeah.
And I told him this, and he had no idea, right? But he ran a generator, and he had a real issue with throttling up and down his machines to counter demand. And we explained it to him in terminology he understood, and he got it immediately. And he's like, "Whoa, I can own it. How much is a miner? How many miners do I need to run?" It was amazing how fast and to see this.
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed from talking to a lot of people who have orange pilled or a discussion is just like, my biggest takeaway from all that is just understanding the person, where they're coming from, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you knew the guy went to Shell, you knew his problem, and you're like, hey, this is how Bitcoin solves your problem. And then once they figures out how it solves his problem, then they'll figure out like, okay, well, what is this whole Bitcoin thing really about, right? You know, maybe it's mining, maybe it's a Lightning Network, maybe it's like a small business that's trying to eliminate that 3% fee from every time somebody swipes. It really depends. But once you figure out what this person is like really struggling with, that's how you can open the door, man. And that's awesome stuff, right? I mean, we have this big, like I was saying earlier, we have this big tech festival in Austin, South by Southwest, this 2-week period, but no real coverage when it comes to Bitcoin, except for what's going on here in PlebLab, man. So it's overall just exciting stuff. And remind me of your name one more time.
It's Ted. It's Ted.
Yeah, because I just came and brought you out here, and
I appreciate the random.
Yeah, this has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
So Ted, I'm going to be doing this all week. So if you're here, feel free to pop in and out. I'd love to kind of continue the conversation, but
Sure.
I don't know if you're on social media or anything like that, or what you're working on, but feel free to shill what you got going on. And social media, where can people find you? Or are you just going to be kind of out and about and you're one of these quote unquote shadowy super coders that we got in the Bitcoin space?
I'm not a super coder, and maybe I'm a bit shadowy. I don't know. I pulled myself off Twitter about a year ago because I just didn't like the direction it was going. I'm not on Nostr either. You can find me actually on LinkedIn.
Oh, there we go. LinkedIn guy. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. You come in here in
I kind of look like
khaki pants,
guy,
and you got the khaki pants, the nice shoes, the button down shirt and everything like that. But
it's all Goodwill.
Yeah.
But LinkedIn /in/FM Thayer, THAYER.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I'm happy to connect and talk about Bitcoiners. I try to orange pill the LinkedIn community. It's a hard nut to crack, but it is
an uphill
crackable.
battle.
It will happen.
There we go. And so, everybody on LinkedIn, be sure to give him a follow and elevate him on LinkedIn, man. Maybe that's the next avenue. We got Twitter, Nostr, all that kind of stuff. It seems like there's more Bitcoiners like kind of in those platforms, but everybody's kind of hiding on LinkedIn. So maybe diving into the business professional, I guess, kind of space would be next avenue.
Yeah, we're trying.
Yeah.
We're trying.
All right, Ted. Well, I'm gonna kick you out here, and then we'll get the next person kind of coming on in, and feel free to pop in through the rest of the week. And man, nice meeting you.
Great to meet you.
All right, man.
Take care.
All right, that was Ted, who's overall just got some great stuff, and you see him traveling around, kind of popping in and out in various Bitcoin related spaces. So be sure to check out Ted on LinkedIn. Check out what he's got going on. And I mean, obviously, you get here in PlebLab, as I said before, you get a lot of unique people, right? I mean, if I wasn't here talking to people, I would have never met Ted because he's not on Twitter, or he's not on Nostr, or not on one of these other platforms. So the value of meeting somebody in person and kind of just going through that, I can't really describe it, man. I absolutely love what's going on here at PlebLab. So be sure to check it out. Go to your local meetups, do all that kind of stuff. Follow PlebLabs on Twitter and check out what's going on. We got the Friday startup day, the Sats by Hackathon on Saturday. I'll be covering all of that. But as I said earlier, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube. Help me out here. Like the video, share it all around, retweet the video if you're listening to it on Twitter, share it with friends and family, post it on Nostr, do all that kind of great stuff. Help elevate what is going on here in Austin, Texas, the Mecca, the 512, my hometown, where I grew up. So overall, just great stuff going on here. And I think we have the next guest coming on in. What's up, man? How are you?
How's it going?
It's good. It's good. All right. So we got the one, the only, the pedicab guy around here in Austin, Texas, who's just bringing people and trying to onboard them with Bitcoin. And you were just riding around. I got a little whiff of what you're smelling right now, man. You've been riding the pedicab all around Austin today, or what?
Yeah, sorry, dude.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
I was funny. I was just giving a tour and I got done with it. So
yeah, great stuff. So all right, tell us who you are and kind of what you're doing in the space. And
I'm a pedicab driver. I was really lucky in that I spent a lot of my unemployment money on Bitcoin. I did this because I had my first roommate in college. He works at a bank on Wall Street.
Okay.
And, I started learning about basic investing. I'd read books here and there, go on like Yahoo Finance and just like, try to like learn about what was on a company's balance sheet, or just figure out like what I was going to do with like, so basically like for a year prior to COVID, I would just put like some money into like a Robinhood account, not really knowing what was going on. And actually I was putting money into like the volatility index because I figured like, oh, everything's going to totally implode. And I pulled it out like too soon. And then everything started closing, and I was like just kind of really scared and frustrated because like I didn't know if I was going to work or what was going to happen. It was a busy time of the year. I had like a family account. I bought like all these like tech stocks, and I saw everything like crashing. And so I was like really freaking out, and I didn't know what to do. And my roommate, who I still stay in touch with, my freshman year roommate, just told me, hey, dude, just buy Bitcoin. When you get your unemployment, you'll get your unemployment. Put that money into Bitcoin. And I didn't know really like, I knew about Bitcoin. I knew what it was, right? Like I think I bought an Ethereum like 3 years prior and just had it sitting there. And so I just listened to him because I trusted him. And I had other like friends that I like knew from like jiu-jitsu and MMA that were like kind of saying the same thing, that had like finance degrees and stuff like that understood what to do. And so I said, okay, fine. I'll just put like, half of my unemployment, like every time I get it, I'll just put it into like Coinbase and just buy Bitcoin with it. And then all of a sudden, 7-8 months pass, and like the $5,000 or $6,000 that I put into Bitcoin, all of a sudden like became worth a lot more. and then I went from being like broke to being middle class, and I was just floored by it. Right. Like I never saw that kind of money like in my own account, like ever in my life. Right. And, I kind of made the mistake of like selling a lot of it when it like in February or something like that of 2021. And I was lucky because I sold, some of it, a lot of it at a high price. Right. And then I started trying to like buy some of it back in. But as things were kind of crashing with the Elon tweet, I just started like following a bunch of Bitcoin accounts. And, I was watching like the Best Business Show, and I was like listening to people like Dylan LeClaire and like Will Clemente talk and trying to like figure out what like the on-chain data meant. And then someone told me to read the Bitcoin Standard, and I started reading it, and I just started like actually
so then you went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. So I started like learning more about like why Bitcoin was valuable. Cause I thought that like, Bitcoin and crypto, they all like every cryptocurrency would just have its own little unique purpose. And it was just like a really cool way to revolutionize money. And I had that belief and thought for a while. And then once the SBF stuff started happening and FTX started like imploding and collapsing, and then you saw the fact that a lot of these coins were basically worth nothing. And you saw what happened with Luna, and you saw people just being able to dilute their own supply and whatever it is. You saw a very, very clear and distinct difference between Bitcoin and these other cryptocurrencies, because I thought it was all the same, because I'm like, oh, you get to take control over your own finances, and the supply is less than the US dollar. And like, maybe, I don't know, you could use some Ethereum to buy an NFT in the metaverse if companies start, so I was like thinking that there might be a value proposition for these other coins, but then you see FTX and you see like Luna collapse, you see all this stuff collapse, and any crypto project or company that has a CEO can very easily do the same thing. And the only thing that can't do that is Bitcoin, because it doesn't have a CEO or a board of directors, and all the decisions are made by the majority of node operators, and it's really easy to run a node because of the block size, and it's really difficult to make it to complete a transaction because the energy that's required, and the energy gets harder and harder. It gets more and more energy intensive because of how it's mined, and the code has to be changed by like a majority of node operators, and it's almost impossible to change the code. And if you actually got to a point where you started changing the code, the mining equipment and everything else associated with Bitcoin would get super expensive, and nobody's going to spend that kind of money on these things unless they want to turn a high profit, and then the price would be skyrocketing anyway. So like worst case scenario, you're still going to make a lot of money from this. Best case scenario, you revolutionize how money works.
Oh yeah, I mean that's, and I mean that was awesome, dude. That was awesome. But I mean, I think it's interesting too because you got into it initially for a number go up, which I think a lot of people did. You know, I mean that's no fault to you or anything like that. But then, you know, once you kind of see that number go up, that's when you're like, okay, what the hell am I actually investing in? When we were kind of talking a little bit pre-show, but when I first met you, it's like, you know, it kind of gets to the point where it's like, okay, once you understand and you go down that rabbit hole of Bitcoin, you don't need to necessarily go in like research a company's 10K, figure out, you know, is this company profitable? Is it got like a good, you know, how's the market cap? What's the price to earnings? Like all these different metrics on to what, you know, you could potentially make money on in a stock or something along those lines. Instead, you just know, you know, you understand the Bitcoin's hard money principles. You understand all the things that you just outlined, and you just make it easier on yourself, man. You just DCA in, and it's probably like, you know, made a lot less stress on your life and allowed you to kind of just focus on other things, other aspects of your life. Maybe it's making more money, or maybe it's,
it's just like, yeah, or just doing podcast episodes. Yeah. I'm giving pedicab rides. You know, I started like speaking at city council meetings.
Yeah.
So, you know, trolling,
Awesome
trolling government meetings.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get to focus more on your art projects, and it's just a better way to do things. Right. Because like investing is a full-time job. Like if you really want to be like like the people that like make insane amounts of money trading stocks and options and doing all that stuff, like you have to be really in tune with what's going on in fiat clown world literally all the time. Like that's your life, you know,
Yeah.
and you got to figure out like, oh, the Fed's having a meeting tomorrow. You know how much I care about the CPI report?
Yeah, I know. And that's coming out tomorrow.
Yeah,
too,
but a lot of people on Wall Street really care. It's a big deal. People are actually nervous about this report coming out.
Oh, well, 100%.
You know, or the PPI report. But for me, I could care less about this, because if you get a good report, if you get a low number, all right, cool. I guess the Bitcoin I own is going to go up in value, because I'll anticipate like a rate hike pause. And if it's a bad report and the inflation is hotter, well, I guess I'm just going to buy more cheaper Bitcoin during South by Southwest when all these tech nerds are in town. So either way, like I don't care, and that's like a really cool feeling to like to have, right? When you're like in your mid 30s and, you know, you like own a house and like, you know, you have like a small business and you know, you're like, I'm not going to say thriving, but you're like staying afloat while everybody seems to be sinking. And that's cool.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, exactly like you said, right? I mean, the difficult part where I think like we're kind of gotten into is that the average person has had to basically understand more about their own finances to maintain middle class, right? If you want to live, you know, if you have some 9-to-5 job and you want to live, I don't know, a little bit more comfortably than just like paycheck to paycheck, maybe you're investing or whatnot. Like these people are taking their free time at night, whatever it is, not really going on dates or hanging out with their girlfriend or whatever, maybe neglecting family or whatever, to learn about these companies' 10Ks or whatever it is. And so the quality, I think, of people's life has kind of gone down.
Well, the quality of life goes down with inflation anyway. And look, I don't know too many people that are going to spend their free time reading 10Ks and learning about balance sheets, because if that were the case, they probably wouldn't be struggling as much.
Yeah, but
right. Like you'd still be at least keeping up. You wouldn't be doing as well as somebody that's been DCAing into like Bitcoin for the past 10 years, but you'd still be doing fine, right? Like it would still be a strategy that you would say is continuing to work for you. But I mean, over time, like when eggs are $9, what's it called? $9 a dozen or something like that. And it's like, you know, it's going to cost you like $20 to buy a whole organic chicken, which is pretty much where we're almost at. And gas is costing $5 a gallon, and you know your rent has all of a sudden gone up by 25% if you don't own your own home. Well, like, cool. Now you have less money to actually invest in these stocks to keep up with inflation. Whereas if you just have your money in better money and you're not living a life based off of debt, because a lot of people too, they live off of debt. Like, you got these guys 100%. At South by Southwest, they got these 6-figure salaries. You know what I mean? But they have to live in the trendy apartment. You know, they have $300K worth or $200K worth of student loan debt and grad student debt. They got to buy this. They got to buy the new vehicle that has, you know, they got to buy the new BMW that costs $50,000. Or they have to make payments on, you know,
or to get that job that they had to go spend $200,000, right, at some school, right?
Yeah, that's what I said. Well, that's what I said. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, you did all of this. And then I don't know. Now you got to take your wife to the fancy dinner, right? Now you got to buy like this nice furniture for the house. Like now you have to buy the designer clothing to like fit in and get your promotion at work. And guess what happens when you get your promotion? Now you just have to spend more money to like continue maintaining an even more superior version of this image. And your money's also losing value because it's totally elastic and based on nothing. So, that being said, eventually you just don't have money to invest in the companies. And so, one day the dominoes fall and the balloon pops, and a lot of people are going to be left with their pants down. And they're going to have no idea what to do. And honestly, I could be one of those people, but like, I don't know yet. Right. But I'm just doing what I think is like the best solution for what's happening. But a lot of these people are going through life sleepwalking, thinking everything's okay, thinking that, oh yeah, well, the jobs report is really good. Joe Biden's great. We're going to be fantastic. This is, they're not thinking about anything, or they're protesting the wrong things. They're going to the establishment sanctioned protests. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
So, the more you're sleepwalking through life, the more you're going to need the central bank digital currency when your bank collapses, right? The more you're going to need to have a universal income when your tech company eventually lays you off, because they have to cut costs, right? Because now the interest rates are what, like five. Now the federal funds rate's like what, 5% or something like that. Like now, you can't just get cheap loans. Now you can't just spend a bunch of money on research and development that you don't even know if it's going to help your company in any capacity, but it'll help your stock price go up. So now you can profit from it, and then you can still hire people on staff, and then they can go buy the new iPhones and buy the new goods. Like eventually that domino will collapse. And a lot of people are just going to be caught totally with their pants down, because you had 2 years during this COVID and during these lockdowns to like really wake up and figure out that something is extremely wrong. Like you could have known this during the financial crisis, but a lot of people didn't really wake up to that, right? Or you just got out of college, you didn't really understand what was going on. But during COVID, when you're at home for 2 years,
100%.
If you didn't take the time to like learn and figure out like, how this system is inherently broken, and you're not trying to fix it. And I mean, honestly, you're not even going to fix a system. The more you realize how broken the system is, you realize it's beyond fixing. And the only thing you should fix is yourself. And that's why, if you have self custody of your own money, and you're buying and you're using the money with the fixed supply that's based on energy production, well, you're not going to change the world, but your world will be a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Like 100%, dude. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, is that your world is going to be better. So, I mean, what is that? Like the root of all that? It's just taking ownership, right? And I mean, that's what Bitcoin really promotes, right? I mean, like self-custody, kind of not relying on any third party, right? I mean, if you have your Bitcoin on exchange right now, like what the hell are you doing? Like, I mean,
I have some on Cash App.
Well, I mean, of course, like I think the average person probably has some here or there, right? I mean, whether it's for spending or other things like that, but majority of your stack, whatever you can do, if you can minimize that third party risk, that third party counterparty risk, or whatever it is, you should be doing it right now. I mean, we're seeing obviously the bank run going on right now where people are losing money in their bank accounts. We've seen situations in the Canadian truckers convoy where bank accounts have gotten frozen.
Yes.
And accounts have gotten seized, right? I mean, so there's so many different avenues that we've seen over the past 2 years alone that are making the case for Bitcoin. It's just absolutely insane how people aren't even waking up to the fact that all this shit's hitting the fan. Like, right, we have this fiat Ponzi that's just kind of like kicking the can down the road. Well, the road's going to end eventually, right? I mean, we're going to have to come to an impasse where it's either going to be, some sort of transition into, Bitcoin, or some sort of, hard money principal type area, or they're just going to print this shit into oblivion, where they're just going to keep printing until maybe it's our kids or our grandkids or something that are going to be really, just suffering from all this. So, on that note, with what you're doing, I think is super interesting, because I mean, obviously we're in Austin, Texas, one of the meccas for Bitcoin alone. But you're also doing the pedicab business, so which I think is interesting. So why don't you kind of get into what you're doing with that, and like the podcast and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, so I drive a pedicab, which is basically like an adult tricycle. It's an adult tricycle,
and those are huge in Austin.
They're the best.
Yeah,
they are the best. I drive a clown car, and can
People love
live
that shit
pretty comfortably, right? It's cool. I'm happy. And I'm also don't live off of debt. Like I got no student loans. My cars, I don't buy new cars. I only buy used cars, right? I was lucky. I bought my house in January of 22 when the interest rates were still low. Really lucky in that department. So yeah, things are more expensive now, but it's going to plateau, right? Things went from here to here, but now they're going to just stay there, right? Whereas if I was going to rent, it would maybe go here to here to here.
Yeah,
to
the kind of
here.
stair step, right?
Yeah, and it would just keep going up with no chance of things ever going back to normal. And then it would be almost impossible to buy a house, even though the cost is cheaper. You're going to be paying a lot more over 30 years because of how interest rates are. So, talking about pedicabs, right?
Yeah. Just like overall, just kind of like what you're doing and kind of how you're using Bitcoin to, I guess, escape the fiat system.
Well, I'm doing my best, right? But I'm also like, you said I'm orange pilling people on the pedicab. Like, I'm not really doing that, man. I'm really just putting a sign. So I'm really just trying to accumulate as much Bitcoin as I can. Whether you're getting orange pilled or not, like I'm not even the person to orange pill you. Like my knowledge of this is so low compared to people who are really in Bitcoin anyway, that I'm not even in a position to be an authoritative source. I'm just sharing like what I know, which is really basic.
Yeah.
It's just a basic understanding of how money should work. And it seems as though Bitcoin fills that criteria, right? But my sign says like, hey, here are the prices, right? And for South by, it's a little bit more inflated.
Yeah.
But so for South by, it's like, all right, $15 a person for under a mile, and it's $25 for over a mile per person. But and if you pay in Bitcoin, I'll drop it to 10 a person.
Yeah.
And if you pay in Bitcoin, I'll drop it to 20 a person if you're going far.
Yeah.
And the sign is right there. And I have my Bitcoin address and I have my Cash App address. And then if people say, hey, do you have Venmo? And I'm like, I guess so, but I'd prefer to use better money. Like I'd prefer these if you have the, or people say, well, how would you like to be paid? Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they'll say, well, why? It's lost like 80% of its value. And I'm like, well, yeah, but we could talk. What about the dollar in the past 100 years? Do you know what you were able to buy with a dollar 100 years ago?
Yeah.
Do you know what you were able to buy with a dollar in like 1970? Do you trust the U.S. government and the Federal Reserve to like look out for your best interests and actually keep your money safe in the event of an emergency, like when you need it? It would just seem like regardless of what the price is, you would want to have some degree of self-autonomy over your finances. Bitcoin does that if you have it in cold storage. Like that's the gist of it, And then you bring up the truckers, you bring up like people leaving Ukraine, you bring up all this stuff, right? And they'll say, well, it lost 80%. They're like, bro, it lost that. That's the argument I get. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's because of interest rates. Or they'll say, well, obviously it's not an inflation hedge because it lost 80% of its value. And I'm like, well, hold up. It's not an inflation hedge. I never said that, but it's a debasement hedge. And it actually does correlate with the money supply, right? Like the more you increase the money supply, the more value Bitcoin proposes. When you start decreasing and contracting the money supply, something like Bitcoin goes down. And a lot of people also get into this thing for the wrong reason. Like they buy it because number go up. And well, guess what, dude? If you bought Bitcoin at 40K and you never sold it, or you started selling it as everything in panic, you became like a perma bear because of the reason for why you bought it. Like I never tell people to buy Bitcoin ever. I tell people to learn about it.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm like, dude, you should learn about it and put a little bit every day into it, or put a little bit every week. Or if you get it, I tell the people I really try to orange pill. I'm sorry, I'm like monologuing, right? But
no, that's fine. This is what this is for, man.
The people that I try to like talk to about it are really other pedicabbers. Like I don't give a shit about I don't give a shit about my customers, right? Like, I mean, they're cool and I like them and I want to have a good time, but they're all doing better than I am, right? Or they think they are. On paper, they're doing better than me, whatever, right?
Yeah.
They have better jobs than I do. They're not, if I'm talking about it, it's because like the only reason I'm talking to them about that stuff is because I think they're smarter than me and maybe I can learn something.
Yeah.
Right. That could help me in my life going forward. Like I'm not going to just orange pill some guy who I think is an idiot on my pedicab. It's a waste of time, right? The only people I talk about that stuff are with people who like work finance jobs or people who I think would know something about investing, and I'll ask them about that and I'll talk about it. But I'm not talking to like some idiot that's trying to go clubbing that's drunk about Bitcoin. I'm just like, the sign's there.
Yeah.
Let's put some music on, right? So that's the one thing. But like with other pedicabbers, I tell them like, dude, you have to put put your money into Bitcoin, bro. Like when you get a Cash App payment, just put it into Bitcoin and leave it there. Because, you know, there's a lot of broke petty cappers. There's a lot of petty cappers that do really well, but there's a lot of like broke dick energy. You know, and there's a lot of people that really just don't understand the stuff that they don't want to learn. It's not it's not a priority.
Well,
like a lot of it is like you're getting made fun of when you're trying to talk to them about it. And that's fine, because the more I'm getting made fun of, the more I realize that this is in deep value territory.
Yeah.
So cool. Like that's and that's the thing. Like you get to really test by being out there and doing this job. You get to, you know, whether you're in a bear market or going into a bull market just by how people respond to Bitcoin, because people talked and responded to Bitcoin a lot. Like in 2021, I was telling people like, hey man, I actually sold my Bitcoin because I made a bunch of money and I want to buy a house and all this stuff, or I want to like invest in something else, because I didn't understand it as fully.
Yeah.
But I also was like following TA guys. I follow this dude called the Blockchain Backer on Twitter.
Yeah.
I really like that guy's videos. Like for technical stuff, I was pay attention to that, right? And he seemed like he was right about a lot of stuff. So I'm like, oh, if he's saying that it's probably reaching the top of its 4.236 extension or something like that, like maybe I should listen to him and take some out, right? And so I would tell people like in 2021, I was like, hey man, I took some money out. I took some of my Bitcoin out and sold it. People were like, bro, why'd you sell your Bitcoin? That's so stupid, dude. Why would you do that, man? Are you an idiot?
Yeah.
And then those same people are telling me that I'm an idiot for buying Bitcoin now.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny because like that reminds me of like the meme, right? I mean, you see like Bitcoin at 60K and the line's like out the door, and then Bitcoin at 20K and nobody's in line, because like exactly like you said, right? I mean, people are always going to try to FOMO in and just kind of look for the number go up. And that's when you can kind of try to maybe have that discussion. But I think at the end of the day, it's like the thing that I took away from you discussing about orange pilling is, at the end of like, you're trying to learn your customer, learn the person you're talking about. And like, all right, like you're not going to waste your fucking time with some guy who's getting drunk and going to 6th Street and going to take a bunch of shots. They don't give a fuck. But you're trying to learn, you know, if you have a finance guy, maybe you could learn something from them. Maybe you could have like a little discussion about it, and you can kind of help your thesis or like figure out a little bit more about it yourself. Whereas like, yeah, I mean like, and other petty cabbers, you could help them out too. Right. I mean, like by, well,
yeah, dude,
like,
we're a community. Struggles. Like when one of us does well, everybody does well, right?
Yeah.
Like we're trying to look out for one another, right? So I think that's important. You know, I try to say, look, bro, buy Bitcoin. Like, hey, they when they had BitBlock Boom, I told one dude to get a Moon wallet.
Yeah.
I don't know if he got any Bitcoin payments,
but yeah,
like,
I mean, hey,
I would do. So I had a bunch
of
people from BitBlock Boom in my petty cab, and I probably got like $400 worth of Bitcoin. And this was when it was 17K. I got like $400 worth of Bitcoin at like 17K that I just got paid it.
Yeah.
Right. And so like just by getting paid in Bitcoin, I got a pretty decent amount. Like I got like a pretty decent amount of Bitcoin just from people paying me in Bitcoin. And like during ACL, I had a couple of like these like wine moms who didn't know what Bitcoin was. And they just were like, this is useless. This is stupid. I'll get rid of it.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't even want this thing anyway. I'll give you like $30 worth of it. I'm like, all right, cool. And she had like the dog coin. And so I'm like, here, let me help you with that. And I just converted it to Bitcoin for her on Coinbase. And I just sent myself $30 worth of Bitcoin. So you get some people like that, right? But I don't know. Just try to like be out there and present value and make the case for it in a way that, you know, somebody who like wears a mask alone in their car would understand.
Oh, yeah. They might be a lost cause as it is.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that's how you want to try to like explain why this thing is valuable, right? And so, you know, you're doing that, you're doing your part to further this. And, you know, generally speaking, if you're making stuff that has value that people want to listen to, eventually you might get, you know, you try to get some sponsorship, you try to get ad deals, you try to like hit people up to like support the podcast you're doing, or to like do ad deals on the pedicab you're riding. And it's like, well, shit, that's, you know, you might get a few $1,000s share worth of Bitcoin now at these prices. Yeah. That's a big deal. Like I got an ad deal from a social media company called Float during ACL, and I got like $900 worth of Bitcoin for like October to December.
Yeah.
You know, like that's awesome. When it was like 18K, 19K, like that's great. I don't have to charge like as high of a price because I'm getting better money.
Yeah. And then you're more competitive compared to other pedicab. I mean, it's just a never-ending cycle, right?
Yeah. Like I'm getting better money. I don't care. Like I'm chill about it.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. So if somebody's listening that, maybe wants to take your pedicab because you're a Bitcoiner and kind of help to support the cause, where can they find you? And what else do you got going on?
Yeah. So my Twitter handle is the Alex Stranger. My Instagram is Showtime Alex Stranger, AlexStrenger. Just DM me on any of these platforms. Follow me, share my videos. That'd be really cool. But no, you could totally we're still in a bear market right now.
100%.
And you could just tell because people don't even know what Bitcoin is, the first thing I get asked is, do you have Venmo?
Yeah.
Do you have Venmo? And everybody's voluntarily using the worst payment platform ever. Like, bro, just use Strike. At least use Strike.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That gets kind of exasperating, is seeing these idiots that you gotta not even gonna call them idiots, but you see these people that just don't get it. They don't want to get it. And then they're going to complain about whatever inequalities and inequities and things that they're suffering from as a result of that, which it's true. But you have an opportunity to opt out of this and you're voluntarily choosing not to opt out of it. So that's really kind of where we're at. But
yeah,
it doesn't matter, dude. Just stay humble, stack.
Yes.
Don't let clown world affect you. Don't buy things on emotion. And if you use better money and you surround yourself with people that are using better money, eventually your life gets better. You'll eat better food. You'll surround yourself with better people. You'll have stronger and better communities. And there's a literal correlation between currency debasement and cultural degradation. And there's a equally strong correlation between sound money and flourishing and society's flourishing. So, which way, Western man? You figure it out, right?
Exactly. So yeah, everybody check him out on Twitter and Instagram and give him a follow and support the cause. Yeah, whenever you come into Austin, hit him up and get one of those pedicabs. Pay him in Bitcoin.
No, please, that would be preferred.
Yeah, even if you just buy the Bitcoin. So I don't know. There's the argument of, do you pay in Bitcoin? Do you not? Whatever. My thing is if you're gonna pay in whatever it is, dollars. Why not just buy Bitcoin right before and then just
pay it anyway? Yeah, what's the problem? Anyway. Especially if you have Cash App, you could buy the Bitcoin on Cash App. I mean, granted, you got use your ID and do all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But you could just buy it, and I'm giving you a chance to pay me less money.
Yeah,
it's
and you could do that instantaneously.
You could do it super quickly. And now there's Lightning and there's all this stuff. So it's gonna get revolutionized. It's gonna change. The more you build and develop that stuff, because the more people that use Bitcoin, if everybody started using Bitcoin at once, the transaction speed would take forever. We're not even there from an infrastructure standpoint to do that right now. But people are developing a lot of cool things. Everyone's very serious about developing the infrastructure to make it so that the transaction speed gets quicker and faster. But either way, because it's not fully developed yet, anybody with half a brain knows that this is the time to stack, because once that infrastructure gets developed, it's lights out.
Oh, 100%. Yep. So on that note, this is going to be the last guest for today. So be sure to give Alex a follow and everywhere just reach out to him and whatnot and help support the cause here. Like and subscribe to this video, or give it a retweet if you're listening to it on Twitter. And I'll be at PlebLab every single day this week doing some streams. So be sure to pop in, check out SatsBuy on Saturday, the hackathon, and then Friday, the startup day. So on that note, I think I'm done for the day. I've been talking for a couple hours here.
I'm really excited. My day is unfortunately getting started. I got tech bros to pedal around. I'm like, let me get some of that Biden bailout money, dog. Let's go.
Get that PPP loan in your pocket.
Let me get some of that Biden bailout money, baby. Come on.
Yeah. Hit him up. And do all that stuff. So Alex, man, thanks for coming in and great stuff, man. I look forward to interacting with you more this week.
I appreciate it.
All right, man.
Such a good time.
Yep.
All
right. That's it for me at Green Candle. And everybody pop into PlebLab, check out the great things that they got going on. And all right. I appreciate you tuning in.